Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to teach you how to build an indoor herb garden shelf for only $10. This DIY is super easy and affordable. Now, if you're a beginner to woodworking like it did take me a little bit longer, but if you're not new to woodworking, this will take you barely no time at all. The first thing I did was measure out the inside of my windowsill where I want my herb garden shelf to lay. And then once I did that, I went to Home Depot and picked up a large piece of pine that I had cut down to the dimension width of my window. And this was about $5 after all said and done. I did have extra wood that I'll use for future wood projects, but you could probably make several shelves out of this. So that's completely up to you. I decided only to make one. So here I am measuring off the width of my windowsill and drawing a line with a ruler. And then I'm going to take a saw and cut this in half. And I am going to take the rest of the wood and keep it in a safe place to use for future. Now, I started this project indoors and realized because I'm an amateur, it will be a lot easier and less messier if I do it outdoors. So I eventually moved this project outdoors. Yes, we are in winter still here. Some days when I worked on this were colder than others, but that's okay. So my goal was to drop 4 terracotta pots in the inside of the pine. So basically what I'm doing right now is I'm measuring out the circles, the circumference of the terracotta pots. And I think next time in the future, I would use a compass to make some perfect, well measured circles. And then here, I've never used a jigsaw before. I watched tons of tutorials on it and I am doing that here. So what I did was I cut a hole with my drill in the center of the pine, and then that's how I got my jigsaw in to make the circular cut. But in the future, I think what I'm going to do is drill several holes around the perimeter of the circle to make that whole jigsaw experience a lot easier and smoother. Now I have sanded many projects, and that's what I'm doing here is just sanding everything, getting all the roughness and the imperfections of the wood smooth. You can distress this, that's completely up to you, and there's lots of information online for that. But like I said, I'm a beginner and I wanted to make something that I envision that was easy and affordable. Now, how I came to the grand total of $10 is obviously this piece of pine, and I counted the sandpaper that I used for it, and the stain, the paint, and the polyurethane. I don't need much stain and paint and polyurethane for this project, so if you have those supplies in your home, it will be a lot less for you to do this project. But if you don't, you might have to invest slightly more up front, but you'll be able to use those products for future DIY projects in the future. So I was a little off on the ends of the board, as you can see here. So this was after I had everything pretty much done. Before I finalized everything, I said I'm gonna go and test it in the windowsill, and of course I was off. So make sure you test and retest to make your life a lot easier, because then I had to resand everything again before I could go and stain it. So after I was done sanding everything, I went ahead and wiped everything down because I didn't want any little bits of wood in my paint or stain or polyurethane. So I went ahead and did this, and yes, I have a winter coat on now because it is for a reason. So the color stain I used was Early American and Driftwood, and I went back and forth between the two stains, kind of creating a color or a finish that I wanted. I didn't want it to be too dark or too light, so I just lightly put the stain using a sponge all over the shelf. And then when I was done, I learned this technique from an Instagram person that I follow, and she did like a whitewash technique over the stain. So all you do for that is about 75% water and 25% white paint, and give it a good mix, and you lightly brush on your watered down paint onto your stained wood, and then take off any excess with a sponge or a damp cloth. So I said, why not? This is a beginner project. It doesn't cost me a lot. I want to try some new techniques and get better at this. So that's why I gave it a shot. And this paint I had was something I had used in my living room refresh that I shared over on my blog. So make sure you check that out. And now here, as you can see, that excess piece of wood that I cut off, I cut that in force actually, because I'm going to use these two pieces that I'm painting all white because that's the color of the inside of my window seal. I'm going to use these two pieces to secure my herb shelf to my window because I wanted it to be removable. So these two wood pieces are going to get screwed into the inside of my window seal, and then I'm going to slip this shelf underneath it, and it'll be so snug that it will sit nicely. So I had to move this project out in the sun because nothing was drying and everything was starting to clump because it was so cold and I needed the warmth. So I brought the project outside in the sun, and it did help a lot. So take note that if the environment is super cold, it's going to take a lot longer and cause some problems. Okay, so now it is time to drill this into the inside of my window seal. Now this is a beginner DIY project for me. So these two windows that are currently in my workout room are older. And I figured, well, if I screw this up, I have these older windows that I could fix, replace, but it's not gonna be terrible if I do it on something more expensive and new. So anyways, my thought process was to go ahead and drill these in, and if you don't want these anymore, you can just take them out and then fill them with wood glue or caulk. But basically this will slip in and out during the seasons, and that's what this is what I exactly wanted. I wanted to start growing my herbs, but I didn't want to use this space all year round. I only wanted to use it seasonally. So, and this is a south-facing window, so I don't need to use this once the temperatures are warm. Here in Michigan, I can take this and store this away. It's thin enough where I can store it underneath the bed or in a closet or whatnot. So after all said and done, was this project completely perfect? No, but I love it. I'm proud of myself, and I accomplished a goal, and I learned a lot through the experience. So hopefully this video encourages you to step outside your comfort zone and try something and make something that is super affordable and not expensive, and feel great and empowered while doing it. Thanks so much for stopping by the farmhouse.